Good morning everyone, and welcome to the final webinar of the 6-part series Sparrowly Group are delivering on behalf of Hawkesbury City Council. Today's webinar is on making your business accessible. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Giovanna Lever and I'll be your presenter today.
And I'm Jackie Hicks, today's co-presenter. We're also joined by Ben on tech support, and we'd also like to welcome our special guest, Megan Ang, Hawkesbury City Council's Acting Manager Community Services, who will be available during the question time. So for the last few years, Sparrowly Group has been working with a number of businesses in growing the region, and more recently are running the Business Bounce Back mentoring program, supported by Hawkesbury City Council. We're so pleased to see the incredible results from these businesses on the program. Some housekeeping before we begin. Your video and audio has been disabled for the presentation. This session will be recorded and a link of the video will be sent to all those who have registered, as well as being published on the Hawkesbury Business Hub website. This will also include the presentation slides and resources. We welcome you to revisit the recording yourself and share it with colleagues to watch on demand. If you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A box, which you can open at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And we will collate them together and go through these at the end of the webinar. If you are having any technical issues, please pop those in the chat box and we will respond to you directly.
All right, now let's get into today's webinar. This is a really important and a big topic. So we may spend about 25 minutes, a little bit more time than usual, just getting through the content, and then we're going to go into question time. So do put your questions in the Q&A. We're really looking forward to answering those questions. Now, so that you can fully concentrate on the information to come, we're going to turn our video off. Now, to set the scene and provide you with some background, Jackie and I are the co-authors of an independent discussion paper released in 2018 and updated annually called Creating Real Inclusion, a call to arms to the tourism industry in support of people with disability. We developed the paper initially as I have a family member with a hidden disability, and when travelling domestically and internationally, we found that her needs were highly compromised due to the lack of care and attention given to the needs of people with disability.
Since being released, we've been fortunate enough to continue the discussion about accessibility in the domestic tourism sector of Australia. But most importantly though, is that we've been advocates for the people who need their voice heard most, people with disability. So let's get into it. Today we're going to discuss, what does accessibility and accessible business mean? Why it's important to you, and what's the opportunity for you as a business?
What does the accessible customer need? Highlight some examples of businesses and organisations doing it well. And finally, what can you do to be accessible ready? Let's get into it. Let's begin by defining what having an accessible business means. It's ensuring businesses and the services they provide, infrastructure, public spaces, accommodation and transport modes are accessible for all, especially for people with disability. And I just want to hone in here, the term and the correct term to use is people with disability. Now, what does accessibility mean? It's important to note that the correct reference, as I mentioned, is people with disability, not disabled, and most importantly, a person with disability and not just those who are wheelchair users.
People with hidden disabilities are those who are often overlooked. You can look at these pictures here. You also need to consider people with prams, seniors, carers, people with food intolerances, people with language difficulties, and those who are temporarily affected by disability. For example, someone with a broken hand. Accessibility is broader than structural changes such as ramps and wider aisles. It encompasses a range of things from training your staff on how to accommodate the needs of all people, the font you choose for your website, how you arrange your product, and where you place your signage. So why is it important and what's the opportunity for you? The figure alone should be reason enough. $10.8 billion. and that's just tourism. A study by Travelability found that the value of accessible tourism in 2018 was worth more than that of the inbound Chinese market of $10.4 billion. The spend accounted for 11% of total expenditure and can be broken down into day tripping at 1.4 billion, inbound travel at 2.8 billion, and overnight trips at 6.6 billion.
The study also found that in 2020, the value was forecasted to account for 25% of tourism spent. A report by Monash University identified that making your business more accessible has the potential to generate more revenue. If your business isn't accessible for all, then you may be missing out on significant numbers of potential customers.
But not only is it important from an economic lens. Under the Commonwealth Disability Discrimination Act of 1992, it is illegal to discriminate against people with disability by refusing access to or use of facilities or premises, failing to provide a means of entry, requiring a person to leave a premise or stop using facilities without a reason, refusing to provide goods or services to a person with disability, or providing goods and services in a way that is not accessible.
The social model for accessibility makes the distinction between impairments, that's the condition, illness or lack of function, and the disability, being barriers and discrimination, contrasting to the medical model of disability. Within this context, the environment must change and adapt to enable people living with impairments equal opportunity to participate in society.
So what's the opportunity for you as a business? Beyond people with disabilities, improving this sector will also greatly benefit the seniors market. The seniors market is an important contributor to the visitor economy, and operators need to be aware of accommodating for these visitors. Seniors coming through now are more financially secure than previously by nature of their generation, and ready and wanting to spend.
There's a high level of loyalty to be gained from people with disability. This means they'll repeat their visits to businesses based upon their own experiences and recommend the great places to go to their peers. This is a link to the idea of place attachment and place identity, which is essential when someone develops such a deep connection and attachment to a place and creates an emotional bond.
So what does the accessible customer need? It's important to think of accessible customers beyond their mobility and focus on their ability. There is an untapped opportunity for both those people with disability and for businesses.
The current scope for the impact to businesses is already significant, and if the sector was serviced to fully meet their needs, it has the potential to be so much bigger. People with disability don't want to be treated any differently than any other customer without a disability. That is, they want to be the same as every customer. Exceptional customer services and experiences are important for all customers.
In most cases, when travelling or visiting a business, people with disability face a multitude of common barriers which make it difficult, less likely, or even impossible to use and visit a business. Some of these include barriers to the physical environment, such as steps and narrow or congested spaces, barriers to information with text difficult to read or information hard to understand. As well as this is information on publications which are only available in limited formats. For example, someone who is deaf, hard of hearing and hearing impaired may not be able to follow along with a video clip if there are no captions. Also, barriers to communication with operators providing limited options for people to contact them, and a lack of awareness about how to communicate effectively. And finally, barriers as a result of discriminatory or negative attitudes.
So let's look at who's doing it well. Accessibility awareness is getting more traction than ever before, with each state and territory mandated under the Disability Services Act to develop a disability inclusion plan. Whilst this is a tremendous step forward, key to this is to ensure that these plans are consistently implemented to ensure people with disability have continued access to improved services and experiences to enable the quality of life they deserve. From an accessible tourism perspective and accessible business perspective, whilst Australia has a long way to go, Our research for the discussion paper uncovered a number of destinations, events, experiences, attractions, and general businesses that have had a positive impact on the customer experience for people with disability.
So one example of this are the efforts where national parks across several states have introduced trail riders, creating access into most national parks. It allows the person with disability to ride anywhere that is marked out as a walking track. The single wheel of the trail rider can weave its way amongst the obstacles on a typical mountain track, whilst 1 to 2 people guide and push the trail rider. In particular, Parks Victoria's commitment to accessibility have been recognised at Victorian Tourism Awards in the past. Other key initiatives implemented in Victoria to increase accessibility include welcome information for children on the autism spectrum, customised canoe launches, a dementia sensory trail, hoists to improve boat access from piers and jetties, and a range of accessible accommodation. There are a number of not-for-profit organisations across a number of industries which are accommodating and servicing the accessible industry through training, guidance, reviews and grants. These organisations aim to remove the stigma within society and the environment, addressing the social model of disability. One of these include Briometrics, who are specialists in technology for wheelchair users. The technology produces maps for cities and regions that includes information on footpaths, toilets and change facilities, and accessible car parking spaces. The maps indicate the degree of difficulty for mobilising throughout a region, as seen here for a regional city in Victoria, Greater Shepparton, a predominantly flat city. The technology Briometrics uses equips a wheelchair user with an app to measure and record the routes taken along footpaths to determine the surface type and conditions, as well as prepare a report on potential hazards, effort rating and accessible buildings. The maps created are beneficial not only for local residents, including the elderly and parents with prams, and local businesses to be aware of and promote, but also visitors to a region.
And the final organisation we'd love to highlight is that of Travel Without Limits. We actually just received the latest copy in the post today. So Travel Without Limits is a disability-specific magazine co-founded by Julie Jones, founder of Have Wheelchair Will Travel, a website which provides people with disability, their support workers and family members with a pool of accessible, friendly places and businesses to experience, visit and stay. We find this magazine absolutely empowering and informative. In fact, when my daughter comes in after school, she pores over it. She really loves reading it. So I actually just texted her before to say that I had the new copy for her to look at. So for more examples of great businesses and experiences initiating change and positive experiences, be sure to look at our full discussion paper, and we'll link these, the discussion paper to the resources that we will share with you post.
Now, what can you do to be accessible ready? Firstly, a change in attitude from looking beyond the tick boxing exercise to be compliant to one that's truly customer centric and commercially minded.
We all need to recognise that the problem is that society puts up barriers for people with disability. It's not people with disability that are the barrier. In most cases, people with disabilities describe challenges or difficulties experienced by them as attitudinal barriers, which results from someone misunderstanding, confusing, or just flat out ignoring their needs. These misconceptions and attitudes are often the most significant barrier that a person with disability may face when seeking positive and equitable customer experiences. Whilst it's unreasonable to expect every staff member to deliver exceptional customer experience in line with every type of disability, any effort or signs that a business has made to make their business more accessible to people with disability can go a long way.
An ideal model of accessible tourism or accessible business would see universal design principles applied for all experiences, products and services, appropriately meeting and adapting to the needs for all people, regardless of their abilities. Before we get into our checklist, let's look at these 5 steps in building an accessible ecosystem which My Travel Research has prepared. Firstly, consulting is at the foundation of the market. It's important to engage with people with disability and their broader community, as well as staff and operators and local government, at a starting point to determine exactly what is necessary for people with disabilities to visit businesses or travel. The second step is inspiring and educating with service providers and operators across industries and within the destination about the potential of untapping the sector. Depending on the size and locale, this could also include working collaboratively with other operators, with council and the destination itself.
The third step is collating and bringing together service providers and peak bodies to provide and identify key areas of exploration and development. It's recommended that businesses start small and develop as you grow where necessary. And it's important to understand exactly what you're trying to achieve and for who. It's not recommended to announce that a business is accessible if it only meets minimal needs.
The fourth step is the promotion to get the right message across to customers and people with disability. This includes ensuring that websites and social media are easy to read and use, and highlighting each service that's being offered. The final step is building new or renovating existing infrastructure. Importantly, consulting with specialist design providers, architects, or interior designers to incorporate universal design principles to optimize design efficiency.
Now, let's look closely to the checklist, which has been developed to help you review the accessibility of your business and identify changes you can make to improve access for existing and new customers with disability and mobility issues.
This self-assessment checklist should act as a guide, and we recommend you use this checklist in conjunction with gaining feedback from your customers to enable continual small but impactful improvements.
Now, we know that it looks quite small on the screen, but don't worry, we'll be providing this checklist as part of the resources. So first of all, let's look at how accessible your business is in terms of the surroundings, signage, access, interior, amenities and procedures. So some things you may want to consider. Are there any permanent or non-permanent infrastructure elements which may be blocking the footpath? An example of this is A-frame boards. Are there any designated accessible parking spots close by? Is there clear and easy to read signage to identify your business from the street? If there are steps to enter your business, do they have a good surface in that they're non-slip and in good condition, have adequate lighting and contrasting step edges? Internally, are there wide and clear walkways? Is there clear space between furniture and stands for a person to manoeuvre around? Are the wall colours neutral with colour contrasting door frames and window trims? This is especially important for people who are visually impaired and people who are colourblind. What amenities are available either in your business or close by? And by this, we mean accessible bathroom facilities and baby change areas.
Now we'll look at your experience and how accessible that is in terms of your staffing and customer experience. Some things to think about. Are there feedback forms or alternative ways in which you're able to obtain feedback, whether it be in person, by phone, or by email? Does your staff receive customer service training, including disability awareness? Are your staff available and prepared to service and attend to customer needs, which may include speaking clearly, writing information down, and interpreting gestures, expressions, and messages? Finally, let's look at how accessible your communications are. And here, thinking about your website first, is your information in clear language and easy to read? Do you provide all useful and accurate information about your business and facilities? If you do have accessible features in your building, is it clear enough and do you provide any images to support it? Are there simple directions to your business? And does your website and social media accounts provide clear business information, your address, a phone number, and opening hours? And finally, do you provide alternative ways to communicate with your customers visibly or audibly?
Now, making your business accessible friendly may seem daunting or sound expensive, but it shouldn't be the case.
Here are just some ideas of some things that you can take action with today in regards to your business. Have a look at your business and consider yourself as a person with disability. Could they access your building or navigate their way around? What distractions are there in your building? Limiting noise and having adequate lighting is really important.
Most importantly, something you can do today, even right now, is get educated. Speak to someone with disability and start learning.
Another important thing you can do is have a look at your website and make sure your information and communication is clear and easy to understand. Importantly, if you are a tourism operator and you have an Australian Tourism Data Warehouse listing or looking to create one, it's really important to include all the accessible features you have in your business. Don't hesitate to contact us if you would like some more information on this, as we'll share our contact details at the end.
And just to add in here too, as a business, you should have your My Google Business listing up to date. It also has a section in there where you can talk to the accessibility for your business. All right, so to wrap up, you'll receive the checklist so that you can do a self-assessment on your business. This checklist will help you understand the areas where you're providing good access and areas that require access improvement.
You can take these areas which require improvement and group them into the following areas. Those actions which you can take now for little or no cost. Those you can take in the medium term that don't require renovation to your building but may include some costs. And there will also be those long-term projects which will require significant investment into a renovation or a redevelopment for improvements.
In summary, ignorance is not an excuse. The fact that you've shown up today for today's webinar speaks in absolute volume, so thank you. To not pay attention to this important sector as a customer and making efforts towards accommodating their needs, you're not only doing a great disservice to people with disability, but you're doing a great disservice to your business. You're missing out on a loyal customer base who, with the right care and attention, want to spend money with your business. So tomorrow, you'll receive an email from us with a recording of this webinar, presentation slides, and other links you might find useful. That also includes the checklist and the accessible tourism discussion paper. Please feel free to share this email with other colleagues or businesses that you think might find it helpful.
Okay, now we're going to get onto question time. So we'll turn our videos back on and we'll reintroduce Megan Eng from Hawkesbury City Council to assist. So Ben, have we got any questions?
Great, thanks for that webinar, ladies. So yeah, we do have a couple of questions. So the first question we have is, what responsibility does my landlord or landowner have to make my premise accessible?
That's a really great question. Megan, do you want to take that one?
Yes, certainly. Look, there is a requirement, as referred to in the webinar, under the Disability Discrimination Act, that essentially means that people must be able to access your business and services in the same manner that anybody can, irrespective of whether it's a person with a disability or without a disability. In terms of council compliance, if you like, the only time that a development application actually comes into effect and current building code requirements are enforced, if you like, if there are significant changes to the interior of the building, or if there are a change to the operations under which, or the services being provided from that building. Now, in saying that, any member of the public is still able, obviously, to contact your business directly. And if you're unable to accommodate or make the changes necessary, they are able to actually make a complaint under the Disability Discrimination Act and have it heard by the Anti-Discrimination Tribunal, under which case you would actually be required to make the accessible changes to your facility. So Jackie and Giovanna, I don't know if you had anything else to add to that?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you, Megan. Back over to you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I guess a related question is, I guess what support can be provided by Hawkesbury City Council to enable businesses to become more accessible?
Great, thank you. So council, as with every other local government area, does actually have a disability inclusion action plan. We do also have an advisory committee who is comprised of councillors. We have various members of the community who are people with disabilities, and also a number of disability support providers. So we also have a checklist. I have to say I'll be looking closely at the one produced by the Sparrowly Group, because I think that's really nice and succinct and gives some really practical advice. But members of that committee are available at any time to come out and meet with you on your premises and just provide a really practical walkthrough in terms of how people are experiencing accessing your business, whether it's on the phone, whether it's related to your print material, or whether it is actually physically driving up and accessing your business. And again, we look at everything from, I guess, your staff confidence and competence in terms of providing a service to all members of the community, and then also can make some simple suggestions in terms of print material, but also then I guess on the higher level around to physical changes that might actually be required to your premises. Now, all of this are just recommendations only. We're not there in any kind of audit capacity or checking compliance. It's really just trying to work with local businesses to make simple improvements to improve access to your business and also then customer experience.
Megan, how do they get in touch with the advisory group or yourself? What's the best way?
Yeah, sure. So look, if you look on the website, even if you just do a search on our website in terms of disability, it'll automatically take you to my position and my contact number. It will also take you to the disability inclusion plan. But if my contact details can also be circulated with this webinar, I'm really happy to take all inquiries directly with you.
Fabulous. We'll make sure we put that on the email that we send tomorrow.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
That's great, Megan. I guess one final sort of follow-up question to that is, from an operator and business perspective, I mean, are there ways in which they can, I guess, band together with council to make the Hawkesbury region itself more accessible?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. As I said, I mean, we do have the Disability Inclusion Action Plan, but Council's Access Committee also recently developed and endorsed a dementia-friendly community plan. And I think some of the attendees today were actually part of that consultation process. So the Access Committee is actually looking for opportunities to work quite intensively with local businesses, either as a collective or one-on-one. And look at providing support to those businesses. And again, it will be around a review and some funding of some new print material, prospectively staff training as well. What we're really hoping to do, I guess, is tailor the way that we support businesses to best meet the needs of businesses, rather than going out with a package of what we think is needed, because we realise, particularly in the time of COVID, you know, the region's taken a big hit along with every other region. So what we really want to do is try and come along and provide something that's supportive, looks at increasing inclusion, but isn't an impost on the local businesses. So again, you know, this is very much in its infancy stages, because the work of the Dementia Friendly Group has kind of only really kicked off in the last 3 weeks. But I'm very keen to talk further with anyone online, and we will also be advertising that on our social media in terms of opportunities to look at being part of this pilot to improve inclusion to businesses.
And if I can just add, you know, if you see other businesses and they're, you know, they're doing accessible business well, or appear to be doing it well, go in and have a chat to them. I mean, generally speaking, having the business community connected is something you ought to be doing in your everyday, but just go in and ask questions about, you know, oh, listen, I've got this step and I can't get a ramp in. What are some portable ramps, you know, ramp options? And I see that you've got a portable ramp. Where do you get yours from? You know, it's about just asking the question. And likewise, you know, if you are interested in getting involved in these programs or becoming a bit of a collective, don't wait for the collective to happen, because it will never happen. You know, just go to Megan and the team at Hawkesbury Council, put your hand up, you know, even if you don't know, you know, everything about making your business, you know, accessible, friendly. We're by no stretch of the imagination experts on accessibility, but we're passionate about it and we see the importance of it. So we've made it our business to research it and understand it. So the only way you can do that is by putting yourself out there and becoming an advocate. So the more people, trying and becoming advocates and doing their bit and sharing knowledge, this is how this starts.
Yeah, terrific. Well, I might hand it back over to yourself, Giovanna, and Jackie to close out the webinar.
Thank you. So here are our contact details. Please feel free to get in touch with Giovanna or myself, and we will share Megan's details in the follow-up tomorrow. We'd love to hear how you're making your business accessible.
So sadly, that concludes our 6-part webinar series on behalf of Hawkesbury City Council. To recap though, what we've covered, and we will also make sure that these, the links to all of these are also in your email tomorrow. Marketing fundamentals, building your business digital footprint, business planning fundamentals, knowing your numbers part 1, knowing your numbers part 2, so 2 very distinctive elements of financials that we covered there, and finally today's on making your business accessible. So as I mentioned earlier, in your email tomorrow, you'll be able to access all of the previous webinars and view the resources as well as today's. Thank you so much, but I just also want to add though, even though this is the last of the 6-part webinar series and you will be receiving all of the materials, they are also up on the Business Hub on the Hawkesbury City Council website for the next 12 months. So they're all there, but if you can't find them and you can't find the links, just remember Sparrowly Group and just reach out to us directly. Like, don't be shy, and we'll get them sent to you. It's absolutely no problem. So we know many of you have been on all of the 6 webinars, and some, where you can have been on parts of them. But we really hope that you've enjoyed the topics that we've delivered, and thank you so much for joining us over the last 6 weeks. We understand as fellow small business owners that your time is precious, and so thank you so much, and do keep in touch.
Thank you.